All right, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of the MMA Outsiders. I'm Andrew Pearson. Joining me today is not only AJ Herrick, but also Andrew Richardson, resident analyst and now pro fighter, pro mixed martial artist out of Team Alpha Male. Andrew Richardson had his pro debut. So we're going to talk about that today on the podcast. And joining us as well is professional animator and videographer Case Hartz, who was there getting video of Andrew Richardson's first pro fight. And we're going to talk about the madness that went down in Brooklyn today. Obviously, can't avoid talking about that. Then we're going to talk about Andrew's pro debut, and at the end we'll actually get into the actual fights and see if we can break some of that down. So first of all, I want to get your guys' takes on Conor McGregor chucking a moving dolly through a bus window. First of all, everyone has their own reaction to this. Since I've seen everyone from the very serious Dana White saying this is the worst thing to happen in UFC history, and I can't imagine working with Conor McGregor again, to Nate Diaz saying, well, Khabib shouldn't have run up on his teammate when he was alone, because Artem Lobov was cornered yesterday by Khabib, which is apparently what set this whole thing off. Nate Diaz, that was Nate Diaz's take. Nate Diaz actually was on McGregor's side for this one. So I mean, what do you guys think? First of all, how serious is this? And were you all entertained or horrified?
If I can answer first, I mean, I'm more in the entertained party. I think it's kind of funny that Dana would say it's the worst thing to ever happen when Uriah Hall, didn't he almost die like 2 months ago now?
Yeah, literally almost died.
Yeah, so I would think, if you look at the bigger picture, sucks that Chiesa got a little cut on his face. I mean, I don't know how serious it is, but that does suck.
He's still fighting.
It's just, kind of standard combat sports fighting nonsense that can go on. I just do think, again, big picture, the idea that of all the things that could make Conor McGregor try to throw his career away, it's Artem Lobov. It's some kind of amazingly funny situation to me.
So do you see this as him just sticking up for his teammate and his friend?
I think I'm sure that's part of the motivation. If I was a betting man, I would say that drugs are another motivation for whatever he's doing.
We're saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem – he's going off on Twitter and tweeting out stupid stuff that's not that interesting. It just doesn't seem like the acts of a rational person overall.
Well, wasn't that the same thing that they had said whenever he jumped the cage and pushed the ref, that they were mentioning, like, cocaine and all this other stuff? They were like, man, this doesn't seem like he would do that. Could be a drug-motivated thing. Wasn't that something that they were saying beforehand, too, whenever he was doing crazy stuff before?
Yeah, people have kind of been speculating, and there's been some evidence that got posted around the internet, like on 4chan and stuff. I mean, who knows how true it is? Who cares?
Right.
But either way, where there's smoke, there's fire. It seems like a pretty decent chance.
Right.
So Khabib apparently responded by saying, "Just name the time and place." Should the UFC be hiring Floyd Mayweather's bodyguards to make sure nothing actually happens to derail UFC 223?
Well, I mean, it would be bad for 223, but if it triples the pay-per-view buys in 4 events, is it that big of a deal? If all this drama leads to an eventual fight, I don't know. I mean, they should probably try to crack down on it just for the sports image and whatever, but I think deep down somewhere Dana is thinking, old school Fertitta thoughts that it's just going to end up more money.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to increase the buy rate, right? Like, even though Conor's not fighting, Khabib is, and this can only increase interest, right?
I'm sure go to the Mania clicks and see how much more interest this has gotten the event now. I'm sure it's a lot.
Yeah, it's popping. Everyone's talking about this.
Case, you're a huge fan of Khabib. In the street brawl between the Dagestani knuckle game cartel and the Irish mob that McGregor rolls with. Who's your money on?
Khabib, he's got like, I don't know, a bunch of Dagestanis, dude. They're gonna, I mean, they're like, there's like half of them already in the UFC. The only one that Connor's got is Artem, and he was, no offense, but I was probably leaning Caceres tonight or tomorrow, the other night. Yeah, when the fights are. So he just rolls with a bunch of scary dudes. And I mean, Khabib wasn't even there, right? It was like like he didn't even find him, the bus.
He was in the bus.
Oh, Khabib was in the bus.
Yeah.
Was it one of the videos where he was saying he's going to beat his ass and stuff like that, or was that Khabib, or was that one of his?
It was Ali. Ali's the one that was threatening. If he was, I didn't see that. I know that Ali was on the bus, but I don't think Khabib was.
Daniel Cormier tweeted out Habib was on the bus according to Ariel Helwani, and Daniel Cormier tweeted out that it was just Habib and Ali. Like his team wasn't there. Cormier was saying if the team were there, it would have been a lot worse.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I just know I saw Ali, or I mean, people quoted him. I didn't see anything from Khabib because he said he was tweeting about meeting him somewhere or something ridiculous.
Name the time and place. He'll show up.
Khabib's always down.
This is not the first street fight or altercation outside the cage that Habib has been a part of. Nate Diaz.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
The videos of that were like kids in a playpen. It was awesome. People were throwing chairs. Nate Diaz is like throwing like punches at people that are like falling over. It was great.
The fact that Diaz slapped both of them at one point kind of just even further solidifies him as an MMA legend, doesn't it? I mean,
got to, right?
Nate Diaz is amazing.
I just want a three-way fight between all three of them. Just like show up at an empty parking lot somewhere in Brooklyn.
I'm down to watch that every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Can Tony Ferguson be outside the three-way fight, like kicking a steel pipe or something?
Yeah, no doubt. He's the warm-up. But yeah, it was a very entertaining day. Unfortunately, like the only actual consequence so far is that Artem Lobov got his fight canceled. Which kind of sucks for him. Hopefully the UFC better pay Alex Caceres his show.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do anything wrong.
They're still, they got a TBD thing going on. I don't think they canceled the whole fight, did they?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I mean, like, how are you gonna find an opponent at this stage?
Right.
Kiesa's still supposed to fight. He's got some like cuts on his face, but he always has cuts on his face anyway. So, but
the scar tissue, and yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Was it from glass? Was it glass hit him or something?
Yeah. So I mean, Connor's graduated from throwing water bottles and monster cans to chucking an entire moving dolly through the window, and yeah, it shattered, and he got glass all over his face. Rose Namajunas was in there too. So was Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I guess she was shook up, but like she wasn't cut.
I'm just glad. I think Mike still has his beard, so thank goodness he still has that. Otherwise, it probably would have been a lot worse.
Probably collecting glass bits in his beard.
Yeah, no, right.
So like, today was peak MMA. This is our sport. You had the very shady character that was Ali Abdelaziz, Khabib's manager, was shouting expletives, going to kill this motherfucker. And yeah,
it's just a big competition for who can be the corniest sometimes, you know?
Yeah, full WWE, you know, they're doing it.
So,
yeah.
So in other like more serious news. By the way, there are a few other pieces of news I did want to cover real quick. Speaking of WWE, CM Punk has his next fight booked against Houston's own Mike the Truth Jackson. That went sliding right under the radar thanks to this whole shenanigans.
That's awesome.
So
where does Mike Jackson train? Where's he trained out of?
He trains at Houston Muay Thai a lot. He's a pro boxer as well.
Have you seen him there?
Yeah, I've seen him around. I think he trains as well at 4 Ounce with like Derek Lewis.
Yeah, he does. He did at least.
Yeah, Case would probably know more about that, right?
I mean, I haven't trained with him in years, but I mean, from what I understand, he kind of hops around. But Muay Thai and 4 Ounce are, I believe, his home bases.
Right on.
One for grappling, one for Muay Thai, obviously.
So basically, CM Punk's going to take his second L pretty shortly.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to get Mike on the podcast if he's going to have time to talk about it. But yeah, so that was some news that went sliding under the radar. Also, Chris Cyborg endorsed the Fighters Union.
Wait, which one? Leslie Smith or the MMA fighting?
Leslie Smith, Project Spearhead.
Woo. Good, that's a good one.
That's good. Leslie seems to have her shit together, which is cool.
I'm a big fan of Leslie, man. I really want to get her on the podcast to talk about it. It's pretty awesome what she's trying to do. I think her approach probably is the best one for the majority of the fighters. But Cyborg is the first champion, the first UFC champion to get on board with it.
And Cyborg is like one of their 2 remaining draws at this point. Somehow.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very good.
It's going to be her and Khabib after this weekend, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Andrew, let's talk about your debut. Case flew out to California. It was pretty easy for you, man. I saw the video. Was that what you were expecting, or was it like studying for a test and then like everything was way easier than you expected?
So it was like one of a case of like, yes, it was I was expecting, but you also have no idea what you're really going to be dealing with. So, like, on one hand, you know, I kind of knew the reputation, the promotion, and, like, they generally that's why guys from my team tend to debut there. It's, you know, low level of competition. You know, you don't want to fight better competition until you get a few fights, that kind of thing. So, on one hand, you know, I knew all that going in, and I've been to an event there, and I've seen the fights, and I kind of knew, like, all right, this is what it should be. But at the same time, there's no one really, you know, watching over what's happening. It's just you get told that okay, you'll get a fight at, you know, whatever weight they tell you, which it ended up getting switched for me up to, you know, 150.
Oh,
so
wow.
I already knew I was going in against a bigger guy. So I kind of like, you know, again, I told myself, like, you gotta stay calm and, like, stay focused. And, you know, we train like we're going to fight, you know, Mighty Mouse, whether we're fighting that guy or a real guy. So it doesn't matter. We train the same. But, yeah, you don't know until you're in there. So it's kind of like I've seen guys like my teammate Bulldog, the guy who does the Mania videos with me. His guy was clearly a good bit heavier than him, was real jacked, and just came out swinging hard. So even if that guy wasn't great, I knew I had to be prepared for that too. So that there was a lot that went into it. Even if the fight itself, you know, I didn't have any trouble there.
Case, what was the atmosphere like going out to film it?
It was kind of chaotic. Like there was just people I mean, he can attest to this. There was people like randomly didn't have opponents. Like people were like, it seemed like people like either dropped out that night of like, there's one like screaming guy who was like lost his opponent and then he got offered a fight and he wouldn't take it. I don't know. It's just wild. I mean, like the atmosphere was pretty crazy. I think one of the people working there took a fight. Like it was like that was how insane it was. But yeah, like he was waiting since he was the first fight. He was waiting for like 10, 15 minutes and we didn't know who he was fighting because there was 3 guys warming up and we thought it was the guy that ended up being, but there was a guy behind him who was warming up. There was other guys walking by. And it was just like,
you literally didn't know who you were fighting until you stepped into the cage.
Not until we went out to, you know, we left the locker room and we're in the hallway to walk to the cage. So we were in that hallway for a couple minutes, and that's
Wow.
It takes some balls, man. Like you just don't know what you're gonna get, and
dude,
you just have to step in.
That was, you know, if you watch all my fights, probably my easiest fight, but definitely the most mentally like taxing of them all too, just because there was so much unknown. And then there was also like, all right, this one actually counts. Like no one gives a shit about amateur fights, win or lose. Like if I go out there and something got switched up and I'm going against some guy that's super good and, you know, again, weight class and a half, 2 weight classes up, and I lose, well, now it's on my real record. That sucks. So, you know, it was a little bit stressful, but
you normally fight at bantamweight, right? 135?
I fought at bantamweight and 125. And now that I'm doing, you know, day before weigh-ins, I can definitely make 25. It won't even be that hard.
Wow. So that's yeah, that's way up for you. That's like
Yeah, I pretty much just told myself, I train with the Andrew Coyne Bulldog all the time, and I good days sparring with him, bad days sparring with him. But last couple years, he's beaten up a bunch of guys at 45s, and won pro fights at that spot. And I was like, all right, well, worst comes to worst, I know I do good with him, better than all the guys he's beaten up have done at least. And that's my confidence. All right, I spar with the dude that's been doing it at that weight class, and if it all goes to shit and it gets wild, that I have that in my pocket at least.
Absolutely, yeah. That confidence coming from training with a legit team. I saw Cody Garbrandt came out and congratulated you on Instagram.
Yeah. Cody, he messaged me too, and so did a lot of the guys on the team actually. Like the long time big name, whoever. We're all really supportive and hit me up on fight day or after the fight. So it was cool. It was definitely cool. More a bigger deal than my amateur fights. Like everyone said something, everyone talked to me. Not that they weren't supportive before, just everyone made a point to do it.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And how'd you celebrate afterwards?
It was pretty funny. So we actually had my mom and Case, of course, in town. So I didn't do anything too crazy. We had Easter the next day. So but what we ended up doing was me and Bulldog generally have a Krispy Kreme tradition. So we went to the Krispy Kreme that was right by the arena with a bunch of his friends, my girlfriend, and Case. And we got some donuts, and we filmed our post-fight interviews in the bed of my buddy's pickup truck. And then afterwards, we just went home and had some pizza, and nothing wild this time around. Just hung out. It was good to be done with everything and relax and talk it out.
Like that scene in Creed where he wins his first fight, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna tear up the town," and like the next thing is just him on the couch, like almost asleep.
Yeah, I've done the, you go out to a house party or a club or whatever thing, and that's generally not all that much of my scene anyway. So I had an excuse to not do anything. I was like, I'm going to take that. I'm going to get some food and then go to sleep. It's been a long day,
Absolutely, man. So in addition to being a professional fighter now, you're also a resident analyst. I wanted to get to some of these actual fights, the ones that are still happening, because they're really interesting to me. It's a shame we're losing Tony Ferguson, but Max Holloway is like the only guy in the UFC on a longer win streak. He's won 12 in a row, hasn't gotten taken down in like 5 years, and he's fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's 25-0. Does Holloway have a shot on 6 days' notice? And like I've never been in like pro fighting shape. What kind of shape can we expect from Holloway after training, after an injury and like a month layoff?
See, I think it's really interesting just because of the type of fighter that Holloway is. Some guys, like, it's a perfect example is Holloway and when he fought Aldo, and that Jose Aldo can fight for 5 rounds, but he's a real explosive athlete and does it in bursts, whereas Holloway tends to maintain the same consistent high output pace. Maybe he's not, quite as explosive in those moment-to-moment, combinations or takedowns or whatnot, but he is very consistent with that cardio, and that's his weapon. So I think generally short notice fights, the guys that are more consistent, that consistent output tend to hold up better than the guys who explode, recover. Because your anaerobic conditioning, you really have to train in the 3 to 4 weeks prior to a fight, whereas aerobic you can work on long before the fight. And so if Max has been running and staying active, then I think there's a good chance his cardio it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the equivalent of him doing an 8-week camp. He won't be that well prepared. But if he's been working and staying in shape, then I think he's not just going to gas in 3 minutes and give up, give away the fight easy.
So he's also really mentally tough. Like the intangibles, this one are interesting because you got a guy who just he doesn't make mistakes. Like Max Holloway has won 12 in a row, clearly because he's just very consistent. And like you said, like he's not that explosive. He's obviously he's a good athlete, but his thing is conditioning, high output, and he's just really solid fundamentally. Now, is he going to be able to stop Habib's takedowns? And I want Case, because Case is a huge fan of Habib and has been watching him ever since he was throwing people in like Russian Sambo, to make the case that like Habib is going to dominate. And I'm going to try to explain why I think Max Holloway might have a shot.
Oh wait, I mean, what if I secretly had picked Max Holloway?
Are you picking Max
None of
Holloway?
us believe that.
No, I'm
None
not.
of us believe that.
Max Holloway's got amazing. I mean, he's amazing. There's no question. But I mean, the mix of all these things coming together, it would be astounding if he was able to stop takedowns. Consistently. We've all talked about this. He chain wrestles. I can see him stopping several first shots, even if not the majority of them. He does move quick. He's got awesome hips. He's going to be long as hell, and he's going to keep his hands down because he knows Khabib's, while he does have power, he's not going to be super worried about that, I would expect. I mean, he's going to be worried about the shot, and he's going to be looking to land uppercuts and stuff, so his hands are going to be low. But if he gets on his legs, we've seen far less wrestlers easily get maxed down in the past. Like it was 5 years ago. Dennis Bermudez did get him down a bunch, though. And Dennis Bermudez is like a foot shorter and a way less credentialed wrestler and a worse athlete. And that doesn't mean he's not amazing, but I mean, Khabib is Khabib. But I mean, I could see him sprawling a bunch and then maybe catching Khabib. But outside of that, he's probably going to get TKO'd in a round or two. That's my opinion. But yeah, you can counter that. That's just pretty simple for me. I don't see much else outside of that.
So I would say that's I'm not going to say that's not the most likely outcome. I think if Holloway wins, and this is where the intangibles come in too, you can't break Max Holloway. I don't think. I think mentally he's going to be in this fight until either he's completely finished or 5 rounds are up. And I think that like if Edson Barboza was able to stuff takedowns in the 3rd round, obviously he's much more of an athlete than Holloway, but the techniques he was using, so the overhook, and the overhook and the wrist control, that's Holloway's go-to technique, and he's really good at that. I don't see him being able to avoid the clinch because everyone who tried to like grab a single leg or just grab a clinch and push into the fence has been able to. But they've never been able to get anything going. In the past 12 fights, I rewatched the Stevens fight and the Lamas fight, and they got to the clinch, and he just got them with an overhook. He was very diligent about grabbing wrist control on the far side, and then after a while, he would just spin out. And Barboza, first of all, Barboza's footwork collapsed when Khabib just came at him. I don't know if Khabib's going to be able to do that to Holloway. I think his footwork's going to hold up. But when he does get against the cage, like Barboza actually had some success. He got beat up some on the cage because he wasn't controlling the far side wrist. But when he had the overhook and he was able to keep Khabib in that position, he was able to spin out and get to open space.
So if I could just add something from a non, you guys have your two sides, but I just did, I just had to watch a bunch of Khabib's tape to write my article that's going to run on him tomorrow or today or whatever time it's scheduled. The thing I noticed is, early on, a lot of guys, when Khabib shot in, they thought they could like limp leg out and escape, and then everyone learned don't do that because he'll grab your back and then fling you into the air. And now Khabib gets in on a leg, and everyone does what you say. They go to that overhook, pull him up, and then try to fight the wrist. And I don't think that works all that much better because Khabib just digs into that underhook because they're giving him one underhook by securing the overhook. He digs that underhook so deep and drives his head in good position, and he's just still in a great clinch wrestling position, and he gets takedowns from there. I think Barboza did his best work of spinning off back into the center, and Barboza's a really good counter wrestler. But he did his best work when he countered the double leg or the single leg while Khabib was still in on his legs. From the clinch, Khabib, when he forced the issue, tended to get his takedown or at least control. when Barboza would like dig an underhook and crank on that underhook and then spin and run and twist him and run away, he tended to get away more successfully than when he pulled on the overhook, landed in the clinch, and then he was in the clinch with Habib, and it didn't get any better. So that's just what I saw watching, footage last night, literally.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much correct. What Habib would do in that position would be go for a trip. His first takedown was an inside trip. And the thing about Habib is once he gets you down, well, especially once he got Barboza down,
the fight changes.
He couldn't get back up. Yeah, and the whole tenor of the fight changed.
The fight changes. It's true.
This is where I think there might be an argument for Max, because I think even if he takes a lot of damage, he's still going to be in it mentally more so than Barboza was.
Oh, I don't think it's a mental issue. I don't think that'll ever be. I mean, I think this is going to be a blowout either way. You think that I'm like really believing that Max has no chance. No, I think he's an incredibly scary fight because he's better than everyone at lightweight. In a lot of ways, I'd pick him as a far worse matchup for Khabib than Conor. Conor gets smashed pretty clearly, in my opinion. Holloway offers a lot more options and is a much better defensive wrestler, it looks like these days. Again, we haven't seen enough of Conor lately. But, I mean, I see him as a tough fight. The worst fight for Khabib in the UFC under 170 pounds is Brian Ortega, in my opinion. But Holloway is a second. If him or Ferguson, one of them. I think Ortega is the worst matchup. But, I definitely am not. I know you're trying to portray me as Khabib. I love Khabib, but I definitely see scary. There is a scary fear that Khabib could get caught. He's not explosive like Michael Johnson, but he is a very good striker. And Khabib could be overconfident. There's lots of things. But if Khabib gets him on the ground, I don't really see much hope for him. Like, just honestly, I'm pretty sure he's just going to get destroyed. But yeah. I mean, do you really think he can stay on the ground with Khabib? Does anyone think he can play guard and not get just smashed?
I don't think that, but I think he might be able to get back up and stay in the fight. And we've never seen Habib go 5 rounds. The conditioning thing for Max.
Wait, we haven't seen Khabib go 5 rounds? I thought we've seen him go like 4. Am I tripping?
No. I mean,
not in the UFC at least, unless he fought 5 previously.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind. Maybe I was thinking about that one guy. He came back after his ACL, but I think he finished him pretty early.
Yeah. Daryl Horcher, I think it was first or second round.
Sure, we haven't seen him go 5, but I mean, he's not getting the Holloway that even if he has good cardio right now, he's going to struggle to go 5.
We've actually never seen Holloway go 5 rounds either. That's worth pointing out. Like his cardio is always held up, but we've never seen him go 5 either.
Then when did he finish Aldo the first time?
In the
3rd round both times, right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's true. That was like the thing that was going around that was crazy. Okay, then yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know there. I mean, I think that he could get up. I could see that. But I mean, if Khabib starts doing what he did to Barboza, I don't think that Max has if he does have a better ground game than Barboza, I don't think it's wildly better. And he's a far smaller man in like the physical just volume that he's going to be able to have, and probably strength. And strength is what helped Barboza early on. To not get complete. I mean, it was a mercy. At the end, the 3rd round, Khabib was not trying super hard, in my opinion. He was kind of chilling, it felt like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, I'm just making sure you know that I'm not just thinking Khabib has an easy fight here. It's going to be like he gets knocked out if Max does some wild stuff, or Khabib just Khabibs. That's a verb now.
He Khabibs. Yeah.
Yeah, if he Khabibs you, it's over, man. It's over.
It's a rough night.
Yeah, it's going to look gross.
If Holloway wins, it's going to be because he reached his maximum potential. I think it'll be one of those. It'll be like a Nate Diaz win. Like he'll have to weather a storm that no one else has weathered and come back from, and then he'll have to beat him down the stretch. That to me is the only way I see it, because he has knockout power, but he doesn't have that like one punch stopping power. Typically,
yeah, he's definitely more of a quantity.
I think for Holloway, one thing I would say is that he should be hitting the body often.
Absolutely.
We see it with a lot of guys that are super physically and mentally tough that, they'll take shots to the face and walk through it. But when you get hit in the body, it's a different reaction. Your body doesn't want to respond. It doesn't want to be athletic anymore. It slows down. And that's not something that you can, just tough out a lot of times. So like even like, just Justin Gaethje, when he lost to Alvarez, that body work was such a significant factor.
Absolutely.
That no matter how ridiculously tough Gaethje is, he stopped looking good. He stopped moving well for large portions of the fight because his body didn't answer the commands. And I think if Khabib gets a little tired, shooting, wrestling, holding Max down, Max is making him really work, trying to get up, even if he eats a bunch of shots in the process. I think, a couple body shots, he hooks to the liver real well. He throws that spin kick real well. Something like that can slow Khabib down and maybe make him a little desperate, a little uncomfortable. He's never really been in a fight where he can't get the takedown and he's getting tagged on the feet. That could be, that moment that Holloway probably needs.
Yeah, I could potentially see that. I mean, I just don't see any. I don't know. It could.
It's tough, right? Because they've never fought anyone quite like each other. I mean, Khabib's a more unique matchup than Holloway, but even still.
Yeah, there's a reason they're both championship level fighters. There's no question. I mean, is it weird? Sorry,
I was gonna say I'm glad that in all the madness of everything that somehow Tony, and if Khabib wins, Khabib will end up as UFC champions. Because honestly, they've both earned to have a belt on their mantle in one way or another. They've had these crazy win streaks and dominant wins. They're both championship level fighters that interim they can call Ferguson's belt, but to me he was going to defend his title Saturday. And if Khabib wins, I'm not saying Tony's the real champion or anything crazy like that. I'm just saying that bottom line history books, I'm glad that both those guys go down as champions, assuming Khabib wins on Saturday.
Yeah. And this is the best super fight we could have asked for that we didn't see coming. In my opinion, at least. Like, this is a fight we all expected, I think, at least in my opinion, that Max would go up eventually. But didn't see it like this, I'm sure. And, I mean, I will say, I think Max is a tougher fight now, and I do think he's a tougher fight when he has a full camp than Ferguson. I think he presents more problems. It's the striking. I think he's faster and more athletic. But his size is the only thing that worries me on the ground, and that's where Khabib. If he gets,
I disagree because I think Tony was a pretty scary original matchup.
I mean, scary.
I probably would have ended up leaning towards Khabib anyway, but I think Tony with his intercepting elbows, his kicks up the middle, and that high level guard. I think there's a lot of things that, like you said, Andrew said, he's got to weather the storm. Tony's good at weathering storms. He's good at doing damage while weathering storms, and he's good at just mauling people once they slow down. So I do think Tony was a really interesting challenge, and I am still truly depressed that fight is not happening because it has to someday.
I am too. I'm definitely sad about that. I mean, I definitely did think Khabib was going to maul him, and I do see your points there. And he's still in my top 3 people I want to see him fight, period. Like, it's Holloway, Ortega, and Ferguson. They're not very far from each other. I just think that Ortega and Holloway offer more problems and more interesting problems to me, mostly because of the Kevin Lee fight. That's when I switched, mostly. I thought a lot more in the fact that Khabib could dominate him because there's no one triangling Khabib. Maybe Ortega. Ortega could triangle him. That I will say. I'm scared of Ortega.
I want to see all of them fight each other because Holloway and Tony Ferguson are similar in many ways. I think Holloway is probably more fundamentally sound, but Ferguson is really long. He never stops or slows down, even when he's like full on rocked, like halfway to being knocked out. He still fights. He still fights at the same pace, and I mean he's awkward in like interviews and stuff, but when he gets in the cage, man, he's pure entertainment. And it's that this matchup has to be the most cursed in MMA.
Yeah, 4 times.
Canceled 4 times, man.
And 2 cancellations for each of them, so we're even.
Got to break the time.
Yeah, so I do have a question since we do have a super fight. We have 2 champions. Assuming Khabib wins, who do they fight? Who do they each fight next? Let's just assume that we can do it the other way too. But I mean, assuming Khabib wins, who does Khabib fight next? And who does Max Holloway fight next?
I think those answers are actually kind of easy. I think that no matter what Dana says, it should be Khabib and Tony, assuming Tony's not out for like a year.
Well,
We
that's
don't
what
know.
I'm expecting. And that's why I thought it was interesting, because I don't expect him back in 2018 at all.
If Khabib
Okay.
wins, I can't see them not making the Conor fight, right?
I mean,
See, that's what I'm saying. That's where it gets interesting for me. That's where I'm saying Connor could jump in, but now we have Connor maybe going to jail or something. Like that's where it's interesting to me.
well, Dana said he has no interest in doing business with him, so that makes me lean towards the fight will happen in Madison Square Garden around November.
Yeah, because it's the opposite. It's always the opposite.
Yes.
With Dana White, you never know.
What didn't he?
Dana White
Didn't
was
he?
saying there's a warrant out for his arrest, that his plane can't leave the city.
But there's no warrant though. Like
No,
they're
no warrant.
yeah.
You know, in America, they can just hold you. I mean, they don't have to like fully get a warrant to hold him.
Yeah.
Next fight is
is
Connor
true.
versus Guantanamo.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If Ferguson just had like a light injury that forced him out, but he couldn't fight this week, but could come back, I would say yeah, it's easily. If Khabib wins, it's Max versus Ortega, and then it's Khabib versus Ferguson. But now it's like the drama with Conor and all that. So it was kind of interesting. But since we kind of know that one, who would be the other way? If Max wins, what does he do? Does he stay at lightweight? Like that's a bag of worms that I don't even know how to disassemble.
That's true. I would. That's a good. That's a more.
Does he fight Ortega at lightweight? Because Ortega doesn't want to cut weight. Why not? Let's make it happen. Like, you see what I mean? Like, you could even do that.
There's already like 12 lightweight guys that deserve title shots. We don't need to add more. Don't say
Who
things
deserves,
like
who
that.
deserves a title shot? I actually don't know who deserves.
I mean, maybe not deserves per se, but you got guys like, obviously Tony, Khabib, and Conor are the big three. You got
yeah, but
Nate
we're assuming those two are out. We're assuming that.
Yeah. We got
For-
Nate Diaz at any point he can return and be like, I want a
Yeah,
title shot. And the UFC will probably give it to him if it's a money fight.
Yeah.
Who else do we got?
If Dustin Poirier beats Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, if Dustin Poirier wins. If not, Eddie's right in the mix. If I look at the rankings, there's other guys that are in, the top 10 that maybe they're not, on that, have the perfect situation to earn it, but they're good enough to potentially beat champions. So lightweight has enough great guys right now. We need our featherweights to stay at featherweight. It's only gonna get more.
Yeah, but
crowded.
I think that Ortega has probably. I mean, at least from what I can tell, he's hinted he'll probably go to lightweight eventually.
Yeah,
he's
eventually.
kind of ginormous. If we couldn't tell in his last fight.
I think if unless Conor comes back, you make that fight at featherweight. Max goes down, he defends his featherweight belt. Assuming he wins the lightweight belt, or regardless, actually.
Yeah, that's the fight to make it either way if he goes down, I guess.
Unless Conor's coming back in like 4 or 5 months, and I doubt that. But
Man, I just want to see Ortega fight now. Now I'm all thinking about is Ortega.
I can't wait till Max beats Ortega for 5.5 rounds and then somehow gets caught in a guillotine.
No, it's gonna be a flying triangle, dude. He's gonna flying triangle him. Like it's already set. Like he already called it.
It's destiny.
It's destiny. Yeah, it doesn't have though. He's got a jumping guillotine. He's got everything, but not the flying triangle.
Max has a pretty good guillotine too.
Yeah, he does.
I doubt Khabib shoots into that, but
Even if he shoots into it, Khabib will just throw you off.
Yeah,
we've seen him in submissions, and he just it just doesn't work. It's weird.
The way he takes you down makes it really hard to set any submissions up.
Yeah, he cuts angles so quickly.
Yeah, and he's especially from the clinch, he's usually behind you or he has hold of one of your legs. He's not usually shooting a blast double, so that's when you typically see a guillotine. But okay, so before we wrap up the podcast, who are you guys picking in the co-main event? Joanna or Rose?
Rose by knockout, round 1. Don't at me.
I go for Rose too.
I
wouldn't say round 1 knockout this time, but
submission.
Yeah, maybe a later submission. Yeah.
What about you, Andrew?
So I think the smart pick is Rose. That's not the pick I'm making, but that's the smart pick. There's some historical stat. I don't know if it's still true anymore, but at some point a year or two ago, I read it that if a younger challenger defeats the champion and then they rematch, that in the UFC, that older, recently dethroned champion has never won.
Really?
And that's, the situation that Joanna's facing. And I don't know if that stat holds true at this point, but even if it doesn't, that's still a really rough situation. But the reason I think Joanna can win is, she just has to make adjustments. She has the skills necessary, I think, to beat Rose cleanly. If she fights patiently, I think it's not a hard fight for her. But, the problem is that Joanna built her entire career off of aggression and volume. And now you're going to ask her to not throw 80 punches and not be super aggressive early on. So the question I ask myself for who wins is, can Joanna make those adjustments? And I personally think she's the rare athlete that can. But most cannot. So again, that's why I think Rose is the smart pick, even if I'm not going with it.
My gut tells me Rose because, I mean, like you said, when you have a result that decisive, it's hard to, you know what this reminds me of is if we had seen Robbie Lawler versus Tyron Woodley run back, because if the fight goes a distance, if Rose can make it through those first couple rounds and like kind of figure out the range, I think she's having a lot of trouble with that. Or get her in the clinch, she can do what Carolina did, and I think she can break her in the clinch. She's really good there. And Rose has, I mean, if you take her into deep waters, I think Joanna can win. But can she? She talked. It's interesting you mentioned patience, because she mentioned that yesterday at the presser, saying that she's learned to be patient. Do you think that was the issue for her? Was she just impatient and like kind of hanging out? She shouldn't have been hanging out in.
Yeah, so on one hand, I think there's two things. I think that it was a bad matchup in that Rose does a much better job than pretty much anyone I can think of in her division of maintaining range and like being, good shots at distance, closing the distance with sudden like bursts rather than hanging out at an accepted kickboxing range. She hangs out beyond that and lets fighters come to her or suddenly comes to them. So I think style-wise, it's tough for Joanna, who likes, pocket exchanges and to, plant her feet and be a Muay Thai fighter at times. But the other thing is, I do kind of believe that Joanna had a bad weight cut, because I do think she just looked not great even before a single punch landed. She'd like, miss out on a front kick and then throw a 1-2-3 after the front kick was too far away. And it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't look like a veteran striker. It looked like someone who was off. So I can kind of, I think that's what it is style-wise. So I believe both things happened. And I think if she is, on her game this time, she still has to adjust the game plan. But if she can do that, then I do think it's definitely a winnable fight for Joanna. But it's going to be, she has to make adjustments is the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then there's a few other fights of interest. This is a really good fight card.
This whole card, this is the best card of the year. We could go through the entire card. I'm looking at it. It's so stacked.
It's awesome.
It's the most stacked card of the year. Like, it's at this point, I don't see any cards stacking up close to it yet.
Yeah, hands down. And I mean, it feels like a no-lose card because all these fighters are awesome. Who are you picking in Al Iaquinta? AJ. Oh, sorry.
Yo.
Who are you picking in? We're gonna go through all three of you. But who are you picking in Al Iaquinta versus Paul Felder?
That's tough. I always go for Al Iaquinta. My heart's with Al Iaquinta, but that's a tough one for me.
Your body's
I really enjoy my body's with Al Iaquinta, and my soul's with Paul Felder. No, I'm gonna choose Al Iaquinta. I'm gonna say decision win with against Paul Felder.
So it's the elbows against the right hand, right?
Yeah.
Who are you picking, Case?
Oh, Al Iaquinta. Yeah. Paul Felder has trouble with good boxers that can put pressure in the wrestling, and I don't see Felder submitting him. So, outside of him just like piecing out Quinta, I'm gonna go with Al. I still don't know how he didn't get submitted in his last fight. So maybe that's how he wins. He acts like he's getting submitted and then just beats the crap out of Al or something. But
there you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Al there.
And the professional, Andrew Richardson. What do you think?
I think it's. I mean, I'm gonna agree with the guys and go with Al, but I think it's interesting because Iaquinta hasn't beaten anyone to really earn his top 10 spot right now. Like he just kind of hung on to it because he sort of maybe beat Masvidal, not really, and then didn't fight for 3 years.
Hey,
And
he
so,
beat Masvidal, man, and he will tell you so very angrily.
I completely scored that fight against him, but I loved his rant, so that's where I'm at. But that's kind of how he's held on the rankings. So it's kind of like there's a chance that Felder's going to come out and be like, "Hey, it's not 2014," and elbow him in the face. But I kind of think that Iaquinta is just the more consistent offensive fighter. He lands, good punches minute to minute in combination. He doesn't get hit all that often. I think he's pretty good defensively too. Whereas I think Felder just kind of does his thing and hopes that a big moment comes. And when it does, he capitalizes. But if it doesn't, he can lose to Ross Pearson. So I kind of see this fight going that way, and that Iaquinta is a little craftier, can avoid, the tricky setups and big shots of Felder. But I do think that Felder definitely should not be overlooked because Iaquinta hasn't proven himself to be a top lightweight in years, really. He beat Diego Sanchez, which means nothing to me,
You mean nothing to me, Andrew.
I mean, Diego, I don't mean to insult Diego. That's pretty rude, but you guys know it's been a few years since that was meaningful.
Yeah, that's kind of like the end of the line for him.
So I really wanted to clear something up. First of all, Ross Pearson is awesome because all Pearsons are awesome.
Yeah.
But secondly, random fact: my old coach beat Al Iaquinta in Ring of Combat before his UFC days.
And who is that?
Shout out to awesomely awesome Pat Audenwood. That was his actual nickname.
That's awesome.
Found it. I believe you know.
Spelled
like
you looked that up in real time, Case?
Well, I'm on the card because I'm assuming we were going to look at some of these, and I'm like, it's just how stacked this card is, man. We could go through. I mean, Anthony Pettis is fighting Michael Chiesa. How is that not that's going to be a barn burner? You know what I mean?
So let's talk about that because he's fighting the zombified Michael Chiesa. Are we picking Pettis?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I'm picking Pettis by cut. TKO.
I mean, I feel like in this fight, knowing the history, I think the refs will just have to allow cuts because of today. You just have to let it go. But man, I don't know. This is a weird fight, dude.
Pettis wins via death by 1,000 cuts. It's all the little
bunch of anime paper cuts.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already halfway there, right?
Yeah.
He just needs 90 more cuts.
Both of them are in such weird positions in their career. It's so interesting.
They're both such weird fighters too, right?
Yeah, very unique fighters.
Yes, is awkward, man. I would never copy his striking, but it is oddly effective because he's so long and gangly. And then he's not a traditional wrestler, but when he grabs a hold of someone, you can tell he's really strong, and if he
wrestles, he's just very awkward when he wrestles.
Yeah,
he's got a very funky style. It's weird.
And he has those weird throws. What's going to be really interesting is if he takes Pettis' back, because Pettis always does this thing where he gets out of back now.
He does. He's so good at it.
Except for Poirier. Well, no, he did it. He just submitted.
He did it 6 times to Poirier.
But then at the end, you remember how Poirier got the submission? He tried it with the body triangle and he hurt himself.
Yeah.
So he got submitted via his own move.
You know what? I hadn't even noticed that. Now I got to go back and watch that.
Maybe he'll be afraid to do it because Poirier got a submission win via mount.
Yeah, it was. He
body triangle mount.
He popped it out trying to spin. And once your rib pops like that, it generally becomes easier to pop it out again. So it could make if Chiesa gets that tight body triangle, which is literally what Chiesa does in every fight he wins.
He gets it so easy. If he gets your back, he's getting the body triangle. It's like 1-1.
And Pettis tries to spin in, it could aggravate that injury. That's very possible.
Yeah. And Chiesa's got a. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I could also see Pettis spinning out of back control a bunch because he does it to everyone.
He's good at it.
Oliveira and Poirier are legit grapplers, and Pettis spun out of their back multiple times.
All the way
Yeah.
Ben Henderson.
Yep.
So
What?
he did the same thing to Ben Henderson in the WEC.
Yeah, he did. That's where, I mean, we all saw at the beginning. I mean, it's an interesting fight. If Michael Chiesa actually gets his back, I would say he probably submits him just because he would be the biggest guy, and he is. I mean, it's debatable, but he probably does have the best rear naked choke out of those guys that you mentioned. I mean, it's his go-to move. Like, it is legitimately his go-to move.
Yeah, he has was it the Sotogari to rear naked choke? That's his thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if he gets him there, he knows that in the striking, he's probably got a disadvantage. So if he gets there, he's going to go all out. So he's either just going to get it, like gas, or I mean, he's going to get it, or he's going to gas try, and then maybe Pettis comes up on top. But yeah, I see that kind of one way there with them. It's so weird because they're coming off weird losses, both of them.
They are.
Both of their losses were weird.
Fell apart mentally last time, I feel like.
Chiesa did?
That's what I thought happened. I watched it, and he came out and he took down Lee early, and it was like, wow, that's great. Like, Lee is hard to take down. You should do well if you can take him down in the first 30 seconds of the fight. And then Lee did a real nice job. I think he used, like, butterfly guard to, like, stand and reverse into his own shot. So, you know, credit to him. That's a great transition. But then, you know, Mike got taken down, and then he tried a triangle, and it didn't work. And then he was like, oh, that should have worked. And he just kept trying a triangle that very obviously wasn't there. Lee shucked him off, took his back, and then Chiesa, like, lackadaisically defended himself as he got smashed in the head and choked out. It seems like after Lee got up from that takedown and then the triangle didn't work, Chiesa was like, this fight was supposed to be over by now. I took him down. And I don't know. That was a weird one to me. Like, he did not respond how I feel, you know, a top 10 guy would respond to, you know, getting reversed or whatever.
I mean,
he was really odd to me.
He was already rocked, man. Like Kevin Lee landed that shot on him at the press conference, and you know.
Maybe. I mean, maybe he was thrown off by their whole beef or whatever, and he was just not in the zone. But either way, it was a strange performance.
Speaking of weird, Michael Chiesa is just a whole bag of weirdness. Like he happens to be the collateral damage today in Brooklyn. He gets mad at Kevin Lee for saying something about his mom. Kevin Lee didn't say anything.
And wasn't even trying to.
What did he say?
I know your mom will be there.
Yeah.
Don't you say anything about my mom.
And in fact, she was there, right?
Yeah.
Like, she showed up. He was just stating something. That's hilarious.
Well, the real question is, you made me think, now that we figured out Chiesa has all this weird luck, if Chiesa and CB Dalloway are in the building, who does it fall down on?
Oh, that's great. Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
Well, Tony Ferguson is outdoors kicking the building. So.
Yeah.
From his wheelchair. But I just noticed this again. Chiesa and Al Quinta are fighting on the biggest card of the year, and I always remember they were one of the funnest seasons of Tough, and the fight ended in the most ridiculous choke ever. Like, huh?
Wait, wasn't that the fight? I didn't see it, but I just remember Al Quinta was like winning and then he got choked.
Took his back and choked. No, that was
He like shot in and got like
him in the first round. I think.
Yeah,
he shot him down, took his back, and it was that.
No, I thought. Well, maybe I'm mistaken, but Al shot in on him, and Chiesa hit. I just forgot the term for it, where you put your arm around their shoulder and you go under their leg, I think a switch.
No. Oh, he switched him?
I think he switched him. I could be totally wrong. But he got his back, and yeah, he just choked him, and it was like the most weird. He went unconscious. But I'm saying years later, there's very rarely do the top two guys stay relevant. You know, it's rare that even one stays relevant this long. But I mean, we're seeing them both. I mean, you can make arguments that Al shouldn't be in the very top, but I think he's kind of on the edge at the very least. And Chiesa, they're both clearly
good.
still here.
I'm not trying to say Al is good. He's obviously, you know, a very good fighter.
Yeah. But you see what I'm saying? It's rare that we see even one make it this far. You know, I mean, a lot of them kind of fall away. They both are staying heavy in the top 10 of that division. It's really fascinating to me. Like we actually have it.
Chiesa also tapped to one of the weirdest submissions ever. It was like Masvidal had him in a choke that didn't look close, and there was the clapper had sounded, and he just tapped with like 1 second to go in the first round.
I remember thinking the choke looked tight, but yeah, there was like half a
I
second
can't remember
left.
that fight. I won't pretend I remember it. So
That was a good fight. You should watch it. That was
I
a
know
really-
I watched it live. There's no doubt in my mind I've watched it, but I haven't missed a card in like 8 years. So I mean, sometimes you forget fights.
Oh, for sure.
So I mean, I'm trying to think of it. I can't, but I'm sure it was. Every Chiesa fight is pretty entertaining, regardless of what happens.
That's worth a rewatch because Masvidal came out. It was classic Masvidal. He got dropped bad, weirdly, because it's Masvidal, and then Chiesa is locking up this guillotine that looks like Masvidal is going to be dead in the water. And
I remember this now.
Somehow Jorge just gets out because he can, and then immediately starts ripping Chiesa's body with like a left kick and a left hook over and over.
Yeah,
it was a pretty sick fight.
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch this. But I mean, do you remember the other Russian featherweight we have coming up, Zabit? I didn't even know this guy was fighting until like 30 seconds ago.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's fighting Kyle Bochniak.
Yeah, which I don't know anything about Kyle, but Zabit is one of my favorite fighters. I've watched his 2 UFC fights like 5 times, then I went back and watched his fights in Russia. And man, the coolest thing about Zabit is how chill he is in the octagon. Like he never quite looks like he's trying that hard.
I mean, isn't that kind of that region of fighters? They're kind of all like that.
Yeah, but Zabit is he's like Habib is really aggressive, and Zabit is just chill, and then whatever you give him, he just lands an effortless counter to it, or does a jump spinning back kick or something like that.
Yeah,
has a kung fu background along with the sambo and wrestling. So I'm actually Zabit is one of those guys that despite his entirely fictional last name Magomed Sharipov, I want to see him fight Max Holloway at some point because he's long, he's lanky, and he's got a diverse arsenal at range, and he's a really good wrestler. So I really want to see it. But
and the cardio, which you need against Max.
Yeah,
exactly.
he looks like a fun addition to the roster for sure. I'm always interested in him. Yeah, this card's just stacked, dude. I mean, we're losing Lava. We've got Dunham back against Mercier, Grutzmacher, and Lauzon. Man, 8 dudes on this card have fought each other. It's insane. These lightweights. I just realized it. With all the lightweights we have, everyone's fought each other.
Evan Dunham, yep. Alain Quinta, Paul Felder, yeah. Michael Chiesa and Anthony Pettis, yeah, pretty much.
It's like a lightweight clinic.
That's what it's great. It's if there was an all lightweight card, we're not far from it, man. Over half the card is lightweights.
I'm of the opinion that there are no bad fights to top the lightweight division. They're all good.
Yep. It's the best weight class in the UFC.
And then the other one that's kind of interesting to me is Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Felice Herrig. Who are we picking in that one?
Kovacevic.
Yeah.
Kovacevic, yeah.
Did you watch Felice's last fight?
I'm amazed that Herrig is on the win streak she's on, and I thought she lost her last fight.
Yeah, me
too.
She's improved a lot, man. Her combination punching is a lot more fluid. I'm gonna be a contrarian and go with Felice Herrig, but with the caveat that Karolina Kowalkiewicz pushes a really high pace. So
I don't think Felice likes pace is the thing. I think it's a real bad matchup. Back when she fought Paige, I was one of Paige's main training partners back then, and Paige kind of lost the first round, but she just constantly did things. And then by the second, Felice was so tired and so done with the fight that Paige just took over.
Yeah.
And I think Kowalkiewicz, or I don't know how to say her name the right way. I don't know how to say it. It's these Polish women. I got you.
Polish shit. Yeah.
Dude, it took me 3 years to be able to spell Jędrzejczyk without having to look it up.
I still have to look that up.
That's the hardest one ever. Hardest one ever. Nurmagomedov, easy. The word is pronounced like it's spelled. Easy.
Zedchik. That's how I remember it.
So one of my really good friends was from Poland, and I was talking to her about something, and she said I was mentioning this Polish poet named Czesław Miłosz, and I said it like Czesla, and she's like ha ha ha, laughing at me I'm like, how? Excuse me, I'm just pronouncing like it's fucking spelled, all right? What are you talking about? Why
you guys are the ones using letters wrong.
Yeah, right. Come on. How am I supposed to know that stuff?
Dude, I'm part Polish. I don't know how to say this stuff.
There you go. Yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah, anyway, she can keep that same pace that Paige did, but she's a super technical fighter also. So that sounds like a bad recipe for Felice for me.
Well, the reason I'll cape for Felice here is because she went to a psychologist and got her like performance, her fight anxiety taken care of, and she looked very different after that. That's when she went on that run. Like she was out for a really long time. When she came back, she didn't have the same like nervousness. She just calmed down a lot. Um,
She
so
does look a lot better for sure. It's been a clear improvement.
like yeah, and she puts combinations together, which I think is the right way to counter the volume of Kovalevich. Kovalevich keeps her head pretty much straight up and down, and I think Felice does a better job moving her head. And you know, last time when she fought Alexa Grasso, Alexa's a really good boxer. She doesn't have the same volume as Kovalevich, but I don't know. I'm gonna go with Herrig just to be a contrarian, and because I've been impressed with how she's kind of turned her career around. But yeah, so UFC 223 this Saturday. Extremely excited. It helps that there haven't been UFC events every week leading up to it. It's been a blessing not to have UFC events this past 2 weekends, and now we get to like fully appreciate the concentrated chaos that is the madness in Brooklyn.
Yes. And if you guys are going to order UFC 23, don't illegally stream it. Order it, pay all the money, go watch it at Buffalo Wild Wings.
That's very ironic coming from you, AJ.
Hey, shit! Hey, man, don't come on. I don't know what you're talking about. All right.
All right.
I'll be the what?
I just wanted to see if there's anything coming out that that the MMA Outsiders listeners should be aware of. I know I don't know if I want to like really put this out there too much yet, but there's a documentary being filmed, right, Case?
Oh yeah, we're done filming it. Now we got 200 gigabytes of video to edit.
So this is a documentary about what's it covering exactly?
The whole situation around Andrew's fight. So like before, during, after, like the whole we did the weigh-in, we did interviews. We get all the fight footage the night of, after the fight that night of, the next day. Yeah, we did a bunch, man. We did it's kind of like the whole experience around having your first fight.
That's awesome.
Pro fight.
That's cool.
Keep an eye out for that. And do you guys have anything else that you want to plug that you have coming up? I know Richardson's got a lot of analysis that, by the way, has been doing really well. People are really interested in how this fight's going to play out.
Sweet. People are interested. No, I got my Habib fighter on fighter breakdown is coming out. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow. I'd have to check to see if the boss man scheduled it yet. But either way, it's written. And Habib's one of the few guys that like is super elite, championship level, awesome fighter, unique techniques that I haven't gotten the chance to write about before. So it was actually a lot of fun. Really digging into his game and figuring out what stuff I wanted to cover for the article. So yeah, something different, guy you guys haven't read about before, and I think I did a pretty decent job on writing about Habib. So you can check that out on Mania in the next couple days.
I'm pumped.
And Case, you got any like sweet animations that people should keep an eye out for?
I think I'm gonna do something about Canelo and putting like his whole like failing because of eating meat in Mexico.
Basically just eating, yeah.
Yeah, the tainted meat over there. I might do something about that whole saga. I didn't get to because I was obviously filming while it all like. Well, the first thing dropped, and then it was like, oh, the fight's gonna happen, whatever. And then like now the fight's actually off, so I might do something around that. But no, the documentary is the main thing around MMA right now. Maybe fit in some animations in between, but
Absolutely. And AJ, you have any music coming out?
Yeah, I just got my album ordered or my EP ordered. It should be in a few weeks, but I got all the mastering done. Everything's done, man. It's just now it's in the mail.
Awesome. And
boom.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Vorpality. I write the Midnight Mania series. You can check that out pretty much every weeknight at or around midnight, so Eastern time.
Boom, boom.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the MMA Outsiders. We'll see you all after the fights.
Bye.
Thank you. Peace, guys.
Bye.